Safety is of critical importance to Miller Milling. We sincerely value the safety and health of every employee, contractor, and visitor as a high priority. We have set high standards for safety for guests when working or visiting our facilities. We constantly strive to provide a safe and healthy workplace, free from recognized hazards through good design and proper maintenance throughout our facility. Full compliance with all federal, state, and local health and safety regulations is the minimum level of acceptance at Miller Milling. You, as a contractor employee, play an important part in these health and safety efforts. Your work in our facility must at minimum meet, and in some cases exceed, federal, state, and local standards, especially with our facility standards for current good manufacturing practices and health and safety procedures. A complete copy of our requirements has been provided to your foreman, company, or organization. These requirements are designed to protect people, our facility, and our products. This video will provide an overview of some of these requirements. Additional rules may apply to your particular job or work task and will be covered by the Miller Milling Contractor Coordinator. As you know, this is a working facility, making a food product that could end up on your dinner table or fed to your pets. While your safety is of utmost importance to us, so is the safety and integrity of our products. Let's review some of the basic requirements. You may only park your vehicle in designated areas. You should then enter using your designated entrance and sign the log daily. This is so we may account for you in the case of an emergency and for purposes of a head count. It is expected that you will wear a sleeved shirt and pants covering the legs at all times. Some locations may require long-sleeve shirts in certain production areas. Shorts, sleeveless shirts, high heels, open-toed or open-heeled shoes, flip-flops, etc. are always prohibited. All clothing must be clean and in good repair with no holes or tears. Shirts with snaps are preferred, and buttons should be limited as they could pop off and contaminate our products. Items such as pens may not be carried in a shirt pocket at any time. Place these items in your pants pocket instead. It should be noted that all jewelry, including items such as watches, rings with stones, visible dermal adornments and piercings, decorative pins, cufflinks, or other accessories, must be removed before you enter any production area, such as the mill or packaging area. Wedding bands without stones and medical alert bracelets are allowed. If you wear a medical identification tag, such as a medical alert necklace, you may continue to wear it so long as it is kept secure and inside your shirt. Artificial fingernails, fingernail polish, and false eyelashes are not allowed in any operational area of the facility. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, is required in our facility. At a minimum, you must always wear a hard hat, hearing protection, safety eyewear, and suitable work boots or shoes. If you wear prescription eyewear that is not safety marked, you will need to wear over-the-eyeglasses safety eyewear. If around heavy equipment, safety-toed shoes or boots are required. PPE is required in all areas, except offices and designated safe areas such as lunch or break rooms. All required PPE must be provided by your company or organization. Gloves may be needed to help protect your hands from various dangers, such as cuts and scrapes, high heat and burns, chemicals, or electricity. Gloves suitable to the type of job you are performing must be worn at all times when engaged in that task. Gloves must be intact and must be stored properly when not in use. Some jobs may require respiratory protection. For example, a filtering face piece, often referred to as a dust mask, should be worn when working in a dusty environment. Your company is expected to provide you with the appropriate respiratory protection for the job as directed by your Miller Coordinator. If you use a respirator, you must be medically qualified, trained in its use, including how to care for and maintain a proper fit. Face shields must be worn any time you are drilling, sawing, cutting, grinding, or performing work that can produce flying particles. or when working with chemicals that could splash. Goggles must also be worn when using compressed air, such as if you are blowing down a worksite after a job. Because of the nature and amount of the dust that can accumulate in areas, it is best practice to sweep or wipe down areas prior to using compressed air. Air should not be used as a primary method of cleaning, as it simply moves the hazard from one place to another. Remember that blowing down may be conducted only after obtaining permission from the Miller Coordinator, and our grain elevator may never be blown down while operating. In addition to the items we just covered, you may be required to wear additional PPE depending on the task you are performing. You must always wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water after eating and using the restroom. Hair and beard nets which will cover beards and mustaches are required in all final product zones and other areas as directed by your Miller Coordinator, and will be provided for you to use. Miller Milling has a drug and alcohol program that prohibits the possession, consumption, distribution, or sale on our property. Failure to follow these rules will result in your immediate termination from our facility and could be reported to the police if appropriate. Miller Milling reserves the right to perform inspections of contractor job sites, including inside job boxes, trailers, vehicles, or other work areas. You should never report to work while under the influence of these substances. In addition, our facility has a zero-tolerance policy for horseplay, harassment, violence, firearms, or weapons of any kind in our facilities. In our facility, you are expected to behave in a safe and professional manner with other contractors and Miller Milling employees. You are not allowed to eat, drink, or smoke in any production area. Water is allowed in sealable and shatterproof or other approved containers. Also, spitting and the use of smokeless tobacco are not permitted in any production area. In fact, smoking materials such as pipes, cigarettes, electronic cigarettes, lighters, matches, or tobacco may not be taken into any production area. Designated areas are available for eating, drinking, or smoking. And hands must be properly washed before returning to the production area after these activities. Please ask the Miller Coordinator about the designated areas you are authorized to use. The use of any device to take photos or videos, including your cell phone, requires prior approval of the facility manager and the Miller corporate staff. Glass and glass containers are not permitted in our facilities because they can break easily and hurt you, as well as be a serious food safety hazard. In addition, all containers you bring must be clearly labeled as to their contents. For our employees' safety and the safety of the food we produce, if you are sick with an illness, infectious or communicable disease, you are not allowed to enter the facility to prevent contamination of the food and ingredients we handle, or transmitting your illness to another person. This includes persons affected with boils, sores, infected wounds, or other potential sources of microbiological contamination. If you have to sneeze or cough, do so into your elbow, so you do not spread germs through your hands. If you do have a minor scrape or cut, only blue, metal-detectable bandages can be used to cover them. Within this facility, you will potentially be exposed to food ingredients or other materials that could be considered allergens or respiratory irritants. The most common concern is wheat and wheat dust, but other allergens may also be present. If you have an allergy to wheat and certain food ingredients that may be present in our facilities, please discuss this with your Miller Coordinator. Contractors are allowed only in the areas where the contracted work is to be performed. Admittance to any other area, building, or facility will require approval from the Miller Coordinator. While in your designated area, an employee or member of management may stop you and ask for identification. If you are questioned, please show your official identification and your Miller Safety Orientation Verification Card, and explain why you are in this area. The training verification card is valid for 1 year as evidence you have received the necessary training. You will receive the training card upon completion of this program. Contractors are not allowed to use our maintenance shop or any Miller milling equipment, tools, or vehicles, including forklifts, without prior permission from the Miller coordinator. You are expected to supply all the necessary tools and equipment to perform your job. Any tools that will be used on food contact surfaces or inside equipment must first be sanitized with alcohol wipes prior to use. Inspect all tools carefully to ensure they will not be a source of contamination, such as cracked or splintered wooden handles. Miller Milling has the right to inspect any tools or equipment used on our property and may reject the use of any equipment found unsuitable. Furthermore, Miller Milling is not responsible for lost or stolen tools and equipment. Do not leave tools unattended and always store them securely. Contact your Miller coordinator if you need a place to store equipment or supplies. Here at our facility, we process food, and it's important that we maintain our facility in a clean and sanitary manner. This means that contractors are required to maintain a clean work area and clean up their work area at the end of each workday. For example, if your job is to repair equipment, all areas must be cleared of all metal shavings, foreign materials, and trash, and disposed of in the proper containers. Color-coded barrels are located throughout the plant for disposal of specific items. The only barrels you may use with permission from your Miller coordinator are gray barrels labeled for trash. Good housekeeping is a key component of a safe workplace. Failure to keep your workplace tidy creates an atmosphere conducive to accidents. Before you sign out and leave at the end of each day, the site must be left in an orderly, safe, and clean condition. In addition, contractors are not allowed to use any hoist, freight elevator, or cage elevator, including a man lift, unless you have been properly trained by the Miller coordinator and have received permission. Please check with the Miller coordinator after this orientation if you have specific questions about the use of company equipment. There are some additional specific rules which we call the Safe 6 that you must follow depending on the type of work you are doing. They are 1. Hot work ignition sources. 2. Permit required confined spaces. 3. Fall protection. 4. Moving equipment. 5. Lock, tag, try. 6. Contractor safety. We'll cover the specific Safe 6 rules that apply to your jobs here and the associated potential hazards. Some of these will require special permits to be completed. There are some unique hazards of which you should be aware. Since we make flour, you need to know that it is capable of catching fire and exploding violently if enough becomes airborne or accumulates on a surface and finds an ignition source. It is critical that both dust and ignition sources are controlled. Before you begin any work that involves the use of open flames or tools that create sparks or excessive heat, you must first get approval from the Miller coordinator. A hot work ignition source permit must be issued before you begin. This requirement applies to all areas outside of the Miller Milling maintenance shop and may require Miller Milling corporate headquarters approval. Special care must be taken when working in designated dusty areas. Always check with the Miller coordinator to learn about the specific procedures that must be followed as outlined in the required permits. In addition, the equipment you use must be in good repair, and you must always wear PPE, including eye and face protection when performing this type of work. Any power tools that produce sparks and are not classified for use in combustible dust environments shall not be used anywhere that combustible dust is present. When the use of the spark-producing tools or open flames becomes necessary, all dust-producing machinery in the area shall be shut down, and all floors and walls shall be carefully cleaned, and all dust accumulations in the area removed. Please check with a Miller coordinator to establish preventative measures to control dust during your work. The use of cables or hoses also requires special precautions. Cables and hoses must not be strung across stairs and must be properly guarded if strung through doors. At the end of a shift, be sure to roll up any cable or hose you are using and return it to its storage location. A confined space is a space that is large enough to enter, has limited or restricted means for entry or exit, and is not designed for continuous employee occupancy. In addition, to be classified as a permit-required confined space, there must be the potential for a hazardous atmosphere, the danger for engulfment, a configuration that could trap a person, or other recognized safety hazards. This applies to all bins, tanks, and silos, and all will be labeled. In the event that you have to enter the space to clean or perform maintenance, it is necessary to first obtain a confined space entry permit from your supervisor or the Miller coordinator. The permit posted during the actual entry and the completed permit returned to the contractor contact. Only properly trained and equipped contractors may perform this work. One person must be stationed outside of the permit-required confined space at all times when someone is inside in order to assist the entrant and call for help in the event of an emergency. A Miller coordinator must be informed of the need to complete confined space work before any work is initiated to ensure appropriate procedures are followed and provide any needed support. Falls account for a significant number of serious injuries and deaths in the workplace each year. Fall protection, including body harnesses and lanyards, are required whenever work is performed above 4 feet over grade, and no standard work platform or guardrails exist. Ladders are required to meet regulatory requirements and not be made of wood to protect our products. They must always be used as designed and as required by regulation. They are to be removed and stored properly in designated locations when not in use. Your work may require additional or unique fall protection depending on the task you are doing. Also, each contractor is responsible to provide their own fall protection equipment. While working in and around our facility, you may encounter moving equipment, such as forklifts, product trucks, rail cars, trackmobiles, yard dogs, or other vehicles. Please be aware of the traffic flow of the moving equipment, and stay within the designated walking paths. At some of our facilities, products may arrive or be shipped by rail. It's important that you're aware of railroad crossings, and that you never store equipment or park vehicles on or near a railroad track. Before crossing a railroad track, stop, look, and listen to be sure the railroad cars are not moving. In addition, there must be at least 20 feet between the couplings of cars before you walk between them. If less, you must go around them. Also, allow at least 10 feet between you and the end of any rail car when crossing to give you time to move out of the way, in the event that the railroad car starts moving. Never cross over or under a rail car or cross a car coupling for any reason. If your job is working on a rail car, a blue flag or sign must be placed at the switch end of the cars, and only be removed by the person placing it. While inside the facility, you may work near or around conveyors that can start automatically. Remember that they may never be crossed over, except where designated crossovers have been provided. Inside our facility, we have a variety of equipment that is used to process, convey, and package our products. The equipment, machinery, and conveyors may start or stop at any time without warning. Therefore, you should never touch, sit, stand, lean against, or walk on any of this equipment. In addition, never stick your hands in any piece of equipment or remove any machine guards which are designed to protect from potentially hazardous points of operation. Machine guards may be removed only for repairs or adjustments. Before removing a guard, and before performing any repairs or alterations to equipment, a machine must be stopped, and then locked, tagged, and tried according to the Miller Milling lock, tag, and try procedure under the supervision of the Miller coordinator. Any equipment with rotating parts, electrically driven process equipment, or other type of power-driven equipment, such as pneumatic, hydraulic, or steam-powered, are covered by our lock, tag, and try program. Likewise, all energized electrical circuits, regardless of voltage, or systems with potential energy, such as springs, gravity, inertia, or counterweights, must be locked and tagged or blocked before work is done. A machine that has been locked and tagged must never be operated until all guards have been put back in place and employees in the area notified. Your work as a contractor is considered non-routine and potentially hazardous work in our facility. Therefore, before beginning any work, Miller Milling requires that you work with your Miller coordinator to complete a pre-job hazard assessment during the planning phase of the job or project you are working on. The hazard assessment will identify any potential hazards you may encounter while performing a specific job and outline actions to take to protect yourself and others from injury. After completing the hazard assessment and before you actually start a job, appropriate barricades or caution tape must be put up around the worksite to warn those around you of any hazards. This includes any overhead work or work that involves hoisting objects that could fall and hit someone below. Electrical work has its own unique safety requirements. Perhaps the most important rule to remember is that all work on electrical circuits or systems, including connections and repairs, is strictly prohibited unless the contractor performing the work is qualified and authorized for such work. This means that all electrical work conducted by contractors must be in compliance with all Miller Milling electrical safety standards, including, but not limited to, using trained and qualified electrical workers, using appropriate personal protective equipment for working around electricity, adhering to any approach boundaries in place for exposed electrical equipment, and receiving approval by the Miller coordinator for all electrical changes, control system changes, or programming changes. In addition, any extension cords used must be a 3-wire grounded type and must be in good condition. Damaged or frayed cords and plugs may not be used. Always plan ahead and use the right length cord for the job. If more than one cord is required, sealed connectors at each union are required. All floor openings and protrusions must be clearly marked with caution tape and/or barricades or other approved methods. If no warning or barricade exists, a person must be posted by the floor opening or protrusion to prevent injury to other personnel from falling or tripping. For a permanent solution to control these hazards, consult with a Miller coordinator for the best options. Finally, here are a few miscellaneous requirements. While working, do not walk, climb, tie off to, or hang items from an electrical conduit or sprinkler line. Cutting or the removal of process or sprinkler lines, the opening or closing of valves, or the shutting down of any operating equipment is strictly prohibited without prior approval from the Miller coordinator. The use of tape for temporary repairs must be approved by the Miller coordinator. It is prohibited to blow dust off your body or clothing using compressed air. Compressed air can cause a potentially serious injury. Miller Milling provides safely designed blow-off stations for personal use. Your Miller coordinator will inform you of the locations at this facility. In the event of an emergency, such as fire or explosion, severe weather, or earthquake, you need to know what to do. Before you begin work, review the procedures outlined in your emergency action plan with your supervisor and the information included in the Miller Milling Visitor Information pamphlet provided by your Miller coordinator. Become familiar with the alarms, emergency escape routes from your work area, and the meeting location in the event of a planned evacuation, as well as the locations of emergency equipment such as fire extinguishers and eye wash stations and showers. In addition, contractors working on-site must provide their own first aid kit containing supplies appropriate to the hazards of the job, including blue, metal-detectable bandages only. And no matter where you are working, remember that access to fire extinguishers, escape routes, and exits must never be blocked. If an injury or incident occurs, no matter how insignificant, it must be immediately reported to the Miller coordinator. This includes all injuries, no matter how slight, any property damage, oil and chemical spills, gas releases, and any near miss, because it's a warning that a more serious accident is just waiting to happen. Also, immediately report any unsafe conditions and work practices you observe and any defective equipment you find while working on Miller Milling property. And if you witness any unauthorized activities, such as trespassing, theft, fraud, vandalism, sabotage, or terrorism, please report it as soon as possible. If you see something, say something. Contractors are required to know the location of any potentially hazardous materials on Miller Milling property. Upon request, Miller Milling will supply copies of safety data sheets for each raw material, finished product, and hazardous material that the contractor may come in contact with, as well as the location of safety data sheet books. If the job you're performing requires you to bring hazardous or flammable materials onto Miller Milling property, you must report them and provide a safety data sheet for each material to the Miller Coordinator. Hazardous materials to be used on our production areas must be approved by the Miller Coordinator and may only be used, stored, and secured in approved areas and available for use only by authorized individuals. Food-grade lubricants are required in certain applications. Please verify these applications with the Miller Coordinator prior to using lubricants, and be sure to immediately clean up any excessive grease and lubricants. You must never use any chemical or substance in a manner inconsistent with the label instructions. Remember, this is a food manufacturing facility, and chemicals of any kind can cause significant food safety risks. Upon completion of the job, you and your company are responsible for properly handling and disposing of any waste, hazardous or otherwise, generated by the products you bring on site in accordance with environmental regulations. The contractor must supply their own roll-off container for waste derived from larger projects. Up to this point, we have been focusing on safety precautions to follow when working primarily inside our facility. If your work requires you to alter or obstruct outside security controls, such as doors, fences, gates, building locks, security cameras, or other security controls, discuss this with your Miller Coordinator before commencing work. A project will not be considered complete until the contractor has removed all tools, materials, and waste from the site. The contractor and Miller Coordinator must conduct a joint inspection of the work area before the site is vacated. As stated at the beginning of this video, nothing is more important than your safety. Nothing. No job is so urgent or important that it cannot be done in a safe manner. Let's review some important responsibilities that everyone must follow. If you are not sure of the correct and safe way to do a job, just ask. All contractors must report to work healthy and physically able to perform your job, and must understand and comply with all safety rules, policies, and procedures covered in this orientation, as well as all federal, state, and local regulations that apply to the work being performed. All contractors are required to sign the Miller Milling Visitor Log on a daily basis. All contractors must follow our personal hygiene requirements. All contractors must keep their work area clean and neat. All contractors must report any injury or incident, no matter how minor. If you see any potential hazards, be sure to immediately report them to your supervisor. Now that we've completed this overview of the contractor safety procedures here at Miller Milling, you must complete the Contractor Safety Orientation Quiz to verify that you understand these safety requirements. The completed quiz will be retained by Miller Milling and shows that you understand these safety requirements. Finally, you will review and sign a contractor compliance agreement. Furthermore, you agree to abide by all personal and food safety policies and procedures while you are here, and understand that this training program must be repeated annually as required by law. Any violation of these policies may result in disciplinary action, up to and including termination of any contract and dismissal from the site. Basically, you and your company could be barred from the facility permanently. You will be issued your Contractor Safety Orientation Card upon successfully passing the quiz and completing the agreement. Your Miller Coordinator will now cover any site-specific procedures with you, including the procedures for parking, the appropriate location for eating, drinking, and smoking, and the emergency action procedures for the location at which you will be working. By following the appropriate federal, state, and local regulatory requirements and Miller Milling's additional safety requirements, you'll be able to perform your work safely and return uninjured to your family at the end of every day.